Hi everyone, welcome back to Difference Frames the World, a channel that offers a unique perspective on global events and how they shape the balance of power. We analyze major international developments in straightforward terms and publish videos daily. Please subscribe to the channel so you will not miss our daily uploads. Today, we're unpacking a significant issue, the ongoing shutdown of the US federal government, and what it reveals about systemic problems in the budgeting and governance process. Before starting the video, I'd like to take a moment to celebrate our lovely Lady Emily's birthday. She is still 25 years old, just as she will be next year and 10 years later. Now, let us dive in and begin today's topic. As of the early morning of November 7, 2025, local U.S. time, the United States Senate has failed to approve a temporary funding bill to keep the federal government running. That means the shutdown, which had already lasted 37 days, entered its 38th day on November 7, surpassing the previous record of 35 days set during the 2018-19 shutdown under Donald Trump's first term of presidency. So yes, we're now in record territory, but record isn't in any way glamorous here. It means more pain for more people. This time, the shutdown is longer and more severe than previous ones, causing greater pain to a larger number of people. One of the biggest hits this time is to food security and nutrition assistance programs. In the U.S., the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, channels many of the Eat at Home supports programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants and Children WIC, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP, Disaster Food Assistance, DSNAP, etc. In the 2018-19 shutdown, 35 days, the USDA had pre-distributed the full month's benefits ahead of time, so beneficiaries still got their nutrition support. However, this time, that didn't happen. It wasn't until around October 31 that two federal judges ordered the government to tap into emergency funds to maintain food benefits. By then, it was already well into the shutdown. Take SNAP spending as an example. It runs around $80 to $90 billion each month. The emergency funds in the contingency pool were only around $50 billion. That means not all benefits can be fully paid. The disruption will affect more than 40 million recipients. In short, the kitchen table pressure is real. Households dependent on food assistance are among the first to feel the crunch. Another fatal blow is dealt at the tarmac. During the 2019 shutdown, one of the dramatic visual moments was when LaGuardia Airport experienced ground flow restrictions due to staffing shortages among air traffic controllers. That helped galvanize political action. This time, we're seeing a more chronic and widespread slow burn. For instance, on a weekend in late October 2025, the U.S. saw 4,600 to 5,800 delayed flights. At LaGuardia, the cancellation rate reached 12%, and the average delay was around 140 minutes. Security check lines at places like Houston and San Diego stretched over 3 hours. It means that the travel system is exhibiting structural vulnerabilities, including staffing, training, and the chain of command, and the shutdown is exacerbating these issues. The Trump administration has begun canceling thousands of flights nationwide, and the FAA is reducing capacity at 40 major airports, including hubs in New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Chicago, to alleviate the strain on air traffic controllers. Hundreds of small businesses were stuck waiting for government-backed loans every day. For many small restaurants, retail stores, and service firms that rely on this cash flow, this is not abstract, it's real wages, real rent, real stress. When you remove or suspend tens of millions of dollars of guaranteed loans, you quickly see how small firms, with tight margins, are especially exposed. The shutdown also created macro and statistical blind spots, which are a more behind-the-scenes problem but no less serious. Due to the shutdown, certain federal agencies have paused key statistical reporting, including employment data, retail sales reports, housing and durable goods figures, among others. Why should this worry us? Because policymakers, markets, and businesses rely on that data to see the terrain, to forecast, to make decisions. Without reliable data in real time, you get more blind flying. Decisions are made on weaker information, which can amplify risk. Also, longer shutdowns have a measurable drag on the economy. So what's behind the dysfunction? Why is this shutdown doing so much damage? And why are we seeing this pattern again and again? Institutional and procedural flaws cause all these problems. What this shutdown also reveals is that when essential public services are halted, the margin of error shrinks quickly. The longer this drags on, the more social pain accumulates, such as food insecurity, travel chaos, inability to access benefits, and local businesses shuttering. It begins to weigh on trust in institutions. And when the public starts to believe the system cannot reliably deliver, the political costs become wider. Where could the turning point be? If you're asking, when does this get solved, here are the plausible trigger points and paths out. Food benefits misfire. If SNAP, WIC or other food aid programs stop or are significantly delayed, you'll see a visceral reaction. Low-income households, state governments, and advocacy groups will raise the alarm. That could tilt public opinion and pressure lawmakers. Travel and transport crisis. If airports or air traffic operations degrade to crisis levels due to unpaid or absent staff, that could again spark political urgency. In 2019, the LaGuardia ground flow restriction was a visible inflection point. It is happening now and is worse than last time. Public sentiment in polls: the longer the shutdown continues, the more ordinary citizens are affected, unpaid federal workers, delayed benefits, and local businesses are hurting. When that pain becomes widespread, it creates political consequences. Legislative bargaining shift. Some signs emerge that bipartisan discussions are picking up. Reports in early November indicate that momentum is gathering, first to reopen the government, then to address the larger policy fights, such as healthcare subsidies. Even if the government reopens later today or early tomorrow, many of the structural issues remain. For a sustainable solution, the U.S. needs to take several steps. First, it must move away from continuing resolutions as the standard and aim for full-year appropriations as soon as possible. Second, it should build robustness into co-federal benefit programs so that state-federal interfaces can better withstand fluctuations in funding. Third, it needs to diversify and de-risk the data and metrics architecture so that a shutdown doesn't come as a surprise to decision-makers. Fourth, it ought to address human capital dynamics in crucial infrastructure arenas, such as air traffic and transport safety, so that shutdowns don't exacerbate pre-existing stressors into a crisis. Last but not the least, a public governance reform is needed to reduce the incentive to weaponize shutdowns as a form of political leverage. The shutdown of the U.S. federal government affects not only the American people but also the world, as the U.S. government plays a big role in global trade, data flows, regulation, and economic signaling. A prolonged shutdown affects markets, supply chains, trade partners, and economic sentiment globally. When governments are unable to function reliably for even basic budgetary operations, it erodes trust. That matters for policy, for leadership, for what to expect when the next economic or geopolitical shocks hit. Domestically, the ordinary people suffer, including soldiers who safeguard the country's so-called freedom of navigation with empty stomachs. Internationally, America's allies will feel unsafe, as a leader who cannot take care of itself will not be competent and responsible for others. For instance, nearly 40,000 American troops in Germany are advised to seek help from local food banks, as they are unlikely to receive paychecks after November 15. We cannot even rule out the possibility that hundreds of thousands of American service people wave their helmets in cold winter winds for mercy on the streets of America's allies like professional beggars. As said earlier, we are witnessing a shutdown that is not only longer but also more disruptive than previous ones, in sharper ways, and with deeper consequences. The pain is spreading across people's dinner tables, along air traffic corridors, into small business checkbooks, into the fog of missing data, and eroding the U.S. military's morale. And yet, the root causes are structural. Unless reform occurs, the next shutdown remains a possibility. What we're dealing with is not a bug but a feature of the system, until the system is fixed. The U.S. Senate is gearing up for another vote to address the ongoing government shutdown on November 7. Republicans are adopting a new strategy by introducing a short-term funding bill, known as a continuing resolution. They plan to amend this bill with long-term spending measures and a commitment to later vote on extending health care subsidies. The goal is to gain support from moderate Democrats, who have been in negotiations for several days. However, Democrats seem unlikely to back the plan. Following strong results in this week's elections, many feel confident about holding out for further concessions, especially on health care funding. The proposal needs 60 votes to pass, so Republicans would need at least 5 Democrats to cross party lines. Some GOP senators even discussed tweaking the filibuster rules to make it easier to pass a funding bill, but there's little support for changing the 60-vote threshold. For now, the shutdown continues with no clear end in sight.
And you either think members of Congress ought to be treated like everybody else, or you don't. You either think that we're more important